And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage. And you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, I am super excited, like giddy excited, if that's a word, to introduce to you my guest today, which is Susan Scott. Susan is the founder of Fierce, and she founded that company in 2001 after being in the think tank world for a long, long time. And she had more than 10,000 hours of conversations with senior executives. She's done TEDx talks, her award-winning books. If you haven't read them, pause this, hit pause, go to Amazon, buy the book, read it, and then listen to this because they're great books. So it's Fierce Conversations and Fierce Leadership. And I know she's got new books coming out and all sorts of other cool stuff. So we'll dive into that. So let's have do we have a fierce conversation or just a conversation, Susan? I'll leave it to you.
Well, the simplest definition of a fierce conversation is one in which we come out from behind ourselves and make it real. So from my point of view, all of my conversations are fierce. They're real.
Here we go. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I want to get the definition out there. So let's go backwards. So if we were to go back in time 25, 30 years, say, we would look at your path and go, well, of course you wound up here, or maybe not, right? So the pretty typical roller coaster of a career ride for most thought leaders today. So how did this happen? How did you get here?
Oh, very strange, because I was an English major. I began my career teaching English, migrated at one point to the headhunting world, which was a lot of fun and my first serious introduction to business. And eventually was asked to chair two groups of non-competing CEOs in Seattle, where I live, and went into that, honestly, Peter, so humble because I thought, how in the world am I going to add value? Because I was supposed to spend 2 hours with each one of them once a month, and there were a total of 30 of them. That's a lot of one-to-one conversations. Yeah. And then each of these two groups, spent one full day together every month to advise one another on their most pressing issues. And I had to decide what issues are going to be on the agenda and then conduct those meetings, those conversations. So it was a lot.
So that format, though, so I just want to make sure I'm getting it. Sounds like similar to a Vistage format, but you didn't have control over the format. This is the structure. We've got to do these one-on-ones and then we've got to get it together. But you had control over the quality, the quantity, the intensity, et cetera, of the conversations.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned Vistage, and Vistage chairs all over the world asked me to come and teach them how I was doing what I was doing, because I was getting really, really good results. So, it was all about the how too. I think most of us understand that conversations are pretty darn important, but most of us don't realize that we're kind of lousy at it. We just don't know how. We know we need to have conversations. We just need to get better at it. And we know we need to have meetings that accomplish great things, tackle tough challenges and interrogate reality and provoke learning, but we don't know how to do that either. So that's really why I founded the company. And I wrote the book because everybody kept saying, please write this down, write this down, write this down.
So I want to push on that because I want to push on that. Sorry about that for a moment, because there's lots of things when you offer to develop a capability in a leader, in a manager, in a sales professional, et cetera. They go, sure, give me that. I need to get stronger at that. Influencing, negotiations, resilience, innovation. But conversations, it seems like, to your point, people's reactions are, well, I've been conversing for 50 years. I don't need you to tell me how to do that. And I'm pretty damn good at it because I don't let anybody else get a word in. But there is an art and a science and a definition of what is a fierce conversation. Because to your point, I think one of the things that you observe before sort of moving into this space is, there's a lot of talking, but are they impactful, these conversations? What does that look like? So talk about sort of the problems that fierce solves.
Well, I was just, I went to our website right before this just to refresh my memory. And I was looking at some of the problems that we've solved for some of our clients. Comcast, for example, they wanted to teach their leaders practical methods for fostering diverse perspectives, how to gain more innovation, and how to give feedback that absolutely got results. T. Rowe Price partnered with us to train their senior leaders how to be more effective, how to create an inclusive culture. Hormel wanted to spark innovation. They wanted to train their retail division sales managers on how to tap into this increasingly diverse background, knowledge, experience of its evolving workforce. Krista's Health had a culture of nice. They were so nice, it was almost a fatal characteristic. They were so careful in their conversations that, there was a lot that was being swept under the rug. And the last one I'll mention is Costco. We've done a lot of work with Costco to prepare their teams a whole new level of collaboration. They chose us to be an integral part. So a lot of people don't even realize that conversations are workhorses of the organizations. What gets talked about in a company, how it gets talked about, who's invited to the conversation absolutely determines what's going to happen, and equally important, what is not going to happen, right?
Yet, by and large, we spend very little time, energy, effort, etc., learning how to have impactful conversations. Because it sounded like the list of problems that you gave me were pretty much the list of things that keep most business leaders up at night. In your world, the root cause or the starting point or the domain expertise is, wait a minute, conversations are a big piece of this equation, right? And there how many thousands of them are happening every day in your company?
And how many thousands of them are ineffective? In fact, we partnered, we did a study with HR.com, and it turns out that these skills are really rare. Only 36% of the people felt that two-sided conversations that build relationships and trust were frequent or fairly common. Only 33% said that overall employee communication was good or excellent. Just 32% said leaders are good or excellent at having productive conversations. 22% managers are good or excellent at having difficult conversations. And 85% said that listening skills were highly important, and yet 22% said that those skills are common in their organization. I could go on. I won't, but it's just
so there's a big gap. So we intellectually know they are important, but pragmatically go, and we're pretty horrible at it around here.
Well, we think we're pretty good. I remember one time when a leader attended one of our trainings with his direct reports, and he was sitting right in the very front of the classroom. And I was talking about the importance of, really not shutting people down as soon as they challenge your thinking, give an alternative perspective. Don't say, yeah, I hear you, but And he said, oh no, I'm really, really good at that. And behind him, Peter, everybody was shaking their heads like, no, he isn't good at that. He's not good at that. But he thought he was. So he's not a bad guy.
I love it. Yeah.
He's just unconscious about what he's doing.
Just oblivious. A nice oblivious man versus
very nice oblivious.
There are probably nasty oblivious people, which are the worst types if you put them in a matrix of nice and oblivious. So I want to pivot because the content is, like I said, you and I were chatting a week or two ago, getting ready for today. Your book's been on my shelf since probably the week it came out, right? And I've probably sent out 20 or 50 copies of that over the years to friends and colleagues. It's just so not basic, but foundational is probably. It's one of those books that you read and you go, wow, I got to change a bunch of stuff that I do and whatever. I want to sort of switch the conversation a little bit. So once you sort of tapped into this, so it sounds like you sort of learned this or saw this as an opportunity from your CEO groups and developed a better mousetrap. How did you then decide, and then maybe it's probably evolved and changed and pivoted over the years, like there's a business here? Because in our work, working with folks like you, there's lots of great content out there. There's the percentage of thought leaders that are able to take that to a viable, sustainable business that isn't dependent on them but a small percentage of that. And you're one of the few that have killed it.
I know, and I'm really proud of that, I have to admit. But so it was only me for a while. I remember one year I gave 52 different talks all over the world. That's basically one a week. I was one tired puppy, and I had a family, and I had dogs that didn't even recognize me. And so what happened was when I would talk with the CEOs and give them a sort of a taste of here's how to conduct a kick-ass meeting, they would say, oh my God, you've got to come and teach my direct reports. Then I would go and do that. So I'd go into their companies, teach their direct reports, and their direct reports would say, oh my gosh, we need this throughout the company. And it just it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger
So
until
let me pause you there for a minute, because there's a bunch of things there that I want to unpack, because this is a pretty typical path. Like, hey, I'm out there keynoting.
yeah,
And for those of you that don't remember keynotes, Google it. We did a lot of them from 2019 and way
yeah,
back. They were pretty good. They were pretty profitable. A lot of
yeah,
people enjoyed them. But the keynoting piece of this is, can you come in and do, an hour in front of this group, make
yeah,
them aware of the concepts, be
yeah,
engaging, be entertaining. But the promise wasn't capabilities development from a learning perspective. So
right,
oftentimes what happens is exactly what you explained. They see you speak and they go, hey, that's great. Come to my team. And many thought leaders go, oh, well, they want me to teach that. So that's 3, 4 hours or a half day or a day or whatever it
yeah,
is. That's
yeah.
sort of like a long keynote, but it's not. So how did you, and I want to sort of dissect this, move from a keynote, which is all about you being entertaining and smart and witty and charming, to, geez, I got to blow this up to 4 hours that people actually walk away
Oh,
better, fierce conversation.
I blew it up to 2 days. I blew it. I
Okay.
really blew it up. And the thing is, I started. Remember, I started life as a teacher. I am a teacher,
Right.
and I love teaching because the teacher tends to learn the most.
Right.
Whatever anybody is teaching or spouting or espousing, writing about, they then
Yep.
are the students of it. And so I was learning, 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 learning. So the keynotes get people's attention. They are the why. Why
Yep.
is this important? Well, because our careers and our companies and our
Sure.
relationships, our lives are succeeding or failing one conversation at a time. And oh, by the way, the conversation is the relationship that you
Yep.
have with
Yep.
anybody, and what gets talked about, how it gets talked about, who's involved, is going to determine what happens. So the keynotes are about the why. Well, you don't want to just leave people all excited about something and not give them any how. So really,
And from a business standpoint, even though keynotes are sexy and engaging and all that, there is far more money in the how, pushing that out to the masses where it's not dependent on you. If you were doing 52 one
yeah,
year and you're exhausted,
yeah,
maybe you could have done 70 another year. You couldn't have done 700. So there's a finite amount of people you
yeah.
can
I think
connect
I'd
with
have
and
been
touch.
dead if I
Yeah.
did that. It was just too
Yeah.
much. The thing is, here's the thing, Peter. There was such a heartfelt response to what I was doing. I mean, people were moved. They weren't just
Yeah.
sitting there and thinking, oh, this is interesting. I should probably add this to my list of things. Some of them were even saying, oh my God, I think I understand how I managed to lose an 18-year marriage I was not prepared to lose. Oh my gosh, I think I understand why we lost that customer that counted for 25% of our net profit. Oh my goodness, I understand why my
I
team
love it. I love it.
on
So
and on and on and on.
stay there for a minute. Oh my man, we could talk for days. This is awesome. So stay there for a minute, because it is my belief, and I don't have the data. I have anecdata underneath it.
Yeah,
I don't have hard data yet to support it, but there's sort of two types of content or thought leadership or whatever that folks get exposed to in the workplace. One
yeah,
is it stays in the workplace, Six Sigma, supply chain,
yeah,
logistics,
yeah,
technology, etc. And then there's what you just talked about, where
yeah,
you go home and you say to your partner, hey honey, I just did this thing here. And whether it's emotional intelligence, listening skills, communications,
yeah,
conversation skills, and you want to try it out on your friends and your loved one, your kids and all that sort of stuff. You clearly fell in
yeah,
that bucket, because and you don't even need to direct people like, hey, there's a cost of you being really bad at this, be it a marriage,
yeah,
be it a relationship, be it or whatever. And
yeah.
why don't you go try this out at home? And once people
Well,
do
I didn't
that,
even have to say that. I didn't even have to say that.
I'm
I
saying
think
you didn't have to say it. Yeah.
yeah, in the book, I did say, do try this at home. I mean, really, do try this at home. And people did. And so for the last many years, I get emails almost every day from at least one or two people who say, thank you for writing Fierce Conversations and Fierce Leadership. I love them. They're very helpful. And I want
Yep.
you to know that this saved my marriage. Or I
Hmm.
just had the best conversation with my partner that we've ever had. And then they want more, which is why I'm writing the third and final book in the Fierce trilogy, which is Fierce Love, and that's about the conversations for two people up close and personal when things are going well and things are
Yep.
not going so well. So because in the other books, it's all focused primarily on business issues, and there are a lot of true stories in there that are
Yep.
amazing. But now it's okay. People have taken this home. The conversations translate directly to personal relationships. But
Right. So you're going from fierce at work to fierce at home
yeah,
in shorthand there. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. I want to touch on, I'm making a bunch of notes here, and another point that you skipped over because you're a teacher, so it comes natural to you. Many folks struggle with, hey, I wrote the book, I'm the thought leader, get me in front of a group, and I just do my thing, right? But they can't replicate it in a consistent way that is teachable. So to make something teachable, you have to almost break it down to the Lego pieces, to the molecular level, and sequence it out in such a way. And you have to have models, methodologies, and frameworks. It's not just, well, Susan got out of bed today and was watching so-and-so, so that'll be what I talk about. How did you codify it so it is consistent, so you have a predictable outcome with the students, with the learners?
Right. Well, I designed a 2-day training, and the specific different kinds of conversations. So, first let's talk about why, and then now let's go into how. How do you have an awesome meeting? How do you have a great one-to-one conversation with your direct reports? How do you give feedback? How do you confront? How do you this? How do you that? And then I invited facilitators that I knew who were just awesome people, who wanted to be a part of this. They all came to my home because I started the company in my home. And I trained them, and I thought, well, that's what it's going to be, because these stable of A+ facilitators are going to go out there in the world and share this with companies. And then I was told by my staff, as I added a few people, companies don't want that. They want you to train their internal facilitators to do this. They don't want to have to pay to
train the trainer. Right.
And I remember I said, the first time somebody told me this, I said, over my dead body, they would they'd never be good enough. And finally that person came back to me and said, I don't think you get it. We're not going to be able to continue with these huge companies if they think they have to have one of our people fly from wherever they are to wherever the company is. It's just not going to work. And so I realized that he was right about that, and we started Train the Trainer, and our Train the Trainer is scary, difficult. It is really hard.
Good.
You don't get a pass just because you go through it. You gotta find your body parts when you're delivering this training, because people will push back on it. It's very threatening to some people to think, you mean I have to really disclose what I'm thinking and feeling? Honestly, I really have to do that.
Well, and to facilitate this type of work versus other type of work, whoever is doing it, whether it's an internal corporate train the trainer or one of your facilitators, they have to walk the walk, right? If I teach Six Sigma, I mean, I have to understand it and I have to be fluent in the content, but they're not necessarily asking me for personal experiences where I've, taken the inefficiencies out of whatever.
Whoever is leading this has to model it. But here's the fabulous thing, Peter. The internal facilitators that work for our clients, they're awesome. They're fantastic. They love this, and they are huge advocates and keep expanding our work within their organizations because they can see the results. I think that they're doing a better job than an outside facilitator would do, because they speak the language, they understand
contextually. They understand the So what, if anything, are you doing or have done from a digital scaling perspective? So it sounds like whether it's your facilitators or an internal corporate facilitator, still one to some, right, people. But what about the digital scalable?
We have had a blast during this pandemic, innovating like mad. So we have we have an app that our clients can use to sustain. It's a sustainability tool. It's powerful, sexy, it's beautiful, it's fabulous. I need to have this conversation. How did that go again? Quick reminder. What are the tips? It's right there. We have 3D simulations. A lot of our clients are saying, look, we need to know how to talk about some of these things that are really difficult and dicey. And, we have 3D simulations that are very, very real, that anybody can watch anywhere, anytime. And we're about to put out the door digital versions of our trainings that do not require a facilitator.
Yep.
So there, the word is asynchronous. That means
Yeah.
someone
Yep.
can take it anytime, any place, wherever they are, with no facilitator, and learn. And so we're now to the point where we have that, because there are a lot of our clients. For example, Christus Health, they said we want our nurses to learn how to have conversations with doctors that are sometimes really, really hard. Doctors can be kind of egotistic and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And we can't haul out all our nurses into some kind of a classroom. We cannot do that.
Right.
So,
they're working, and you got shifts, and you got all sort of complexities.
And then same thing with retail clients. How do we get out to people on the floor when there is?
Well, the other big trend, though, is there are less and less 2 and 3 day experiences happening. Yes. Forget COVID for a minute, even regardless
These
of that.
Little bites.
Yeah. So micro learning is huge right now. Give me, whether that's an attention span issue or generational, whatever. I want something little that I can nibble on, think about, and learn, and then build on it. And the other thing is the difference between push and pull. You and I grew up in a world that was mostly push learning, right? So we had the pre-test on Monday, got a couple of words wrong, and then study. Friday, you did better. Now it's pull. Now it's like, I need to give feedback. Like I am that nurse and need to have a tough conversation with Dr. Jones tomorrow. Let me pull down some refresher, because it increases the relevance and the lean in. So all that's changing, which is really, really cool.
It is cool. And I actually love it. I mean, I love technology. I have so many gadgets. It's ridiculous. I don't know how to use most of them, but I have them and I love them. And so our clients do too. I mean, like T-Mobile, for example, they say, how do we handle it if somebody comes into one of our stores without a mask on and says they are not going to wear a mask because they think this whole thing is a hoax? How do we handle that? So we've got a little 3D thing about that anybody can watch anytime. And the courses that anybody can take are very bite-sized, so that, you think, well, maybe I can spare 10 minutes here, and that's it. Well, okay, 10 minutes.
Even like that mask thing that you came up with, so that wasn't on anybody's radar a year ago.
No,
so
I know.
You can take the whole models framework and whatever and ask yourself, how would we do that in a fierce way? Right.
Well, that's what I love. Our clients now are calling and asking us for specific customized 3D simulations and
scenario based, right?
Yeah, we're producing them to fit exactly. We can even make it look like the inside of a T-Mobile store, for example, or whatever. I mean, it is very real and very short and very clear. So
I love it.
I love it too. I love it too, because the whole thing is, how do we equip our clients with the skill that they need? And I mean, the reason why we're so uncomfortable about having some of these conversations is because we don't know how. But once we know how, the courage will come, because we try it. Nobody died. It was really a good conversation. A great.
Well, I would say, not only do we not know how, but we either don't know that we don't know, or embarrassed to ask, because it seems like, well, everybody's having conversations all the time. Yeah. So again, I mean, going back to my point earlier, if there's a framework or if there's a new piece of software that comes out, you go, geez, I don't know how to use this. And everybody goes, of course you don't. It just came out yesterday. Let me show you. Let me teach you. But has it become more, or are people more transparent to say, yes, I need a little help? Because it just, I just think there's like certain areas of content, charisma, trust. And I know how to build trust. I'm a trustworthy person. Well, maybe, but let me show you a framework that may help you do it better, faster, quicker, etc. And I think that's a big piece of this.
I wish I knew for sure how to answer that question. I'd have to talk with our people who work directly with our clients to find out, what is the attitude out there? Do people still think that they're really great at this stuff and, don't really need it? Or are they saying, no, I need it. I need it. I want it. Give it to me right now. I don't know. Sure. I'd like to think that they were. And I'll tell you, I mean, given this, I was just watching MSNBC right before we came on, Chuck Todd talking and all this stuff. And we were, I was thinking about this character, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example. And I would love to ask her. I would love to just ask her, what is in it for you to believe what you believe? What are you winning? What is, when you say these things, these wild things, what are you gaining when you say these things? And flip side, what's at stake for you to lose when you say these things? I mean, there's something at stake. Gain or lose. What is it? And that's the question that I've often asked leaders when they say, this is a belief I hold. I believe this. And I say, okay, what's the win in holding that belief?
And what's the cost to others that you're not aware of? Yeah.
In the movie The Wizard of Oz, towards the end, Toto, the little dog, he goes and pulls this curtain back, and here's this little man pulling all these levers, and he looks around and says, "Don't pay any attention to that little man behind the curtain." We all have a little man behind our curtain who's running the show. That's our belief system. So that's one of the things we get at in our training is, what beliefs do you hold? Are they helping you or hindering you? Let's really get real at that. Yeah.
Well, it's that belief system that, it's one thing to teach people a skill, right? So if you gave me a puppy, a Frisbee, and a pocket full of treats, I can eventually, if I'm patient enough, teach the puppy to catch the Frisbee if I reward them enough, right?
Yeah.
But there's no mindset involved, right? I'm not teaching that puppy to think Frisbees are scarce or abundant, right? I'm not, right? People are kind of messed up that way. If it was easy as a give me some treats and cookies, you have to get people to say, what are you gaining by behaving in this way? Yeah. Are you willing to try another way, which might be scary, which might be different, which might be whatever, and realize that you might have more to gain that way. So we call that mindset. Like, what are the mindsets that are baked into the thought leadership that are really engaging and or scary? And to me, the stuff that's the most engaging is also the most frightening and the most rewarding.
I know.
And anyway,
I know. Yeah. Woody Allen went, "I'm not afraid of death. I just don't want to be in the room when it happens."
Yeah, exactly.
I think some people
on that note,
about these conversations, and yet a fierce conversation has 4 objectives: interrogate reality, because no plan survives its collision. Provoke learning for everybody, including the leader. Tackle of challenges, and enrich relationships, because relationships are our most valuable currency.
And it's the last piece that holds it all together, because I can do the first 3 and tank a relationship and feel like I got my point across. Well, if Susan didn't like it, well, damn her, that's our problem. Well,
and if that happens, it wasn't a fierce conversation, because they're meant to enrich relationships, because that is so important.
Yep. Yeah. Well, like most great conversations, this one's going a bit longer than we normally do. So that has been awesome. Thank you for spending time with us today, and I appreciate your work and your candor and your fierceness. So thank you for coming on board today.
Thank you, Peter. I really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Thank you. To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.